Firstly, tell us about this investment tracker. We used to PMIs that measure the activity within the manufacturing sector, which, by the way, has not been doing very, very well. But do tell us about this investment tracker. What is it meant to do? What is it?
So we've been doing this investment survey now amongst our members of the manufacturing circle, covering a wide range of different sectors in the economy for a number of years now. It is a quarterly survey, and it measures member activity in the manufacturing sector across 8 different segments. And it's a very good indicator of whether or not manufacturers are positive or whether they are experiencing pressure. And due to the fact that it is geographically represented across the entire country, it allows us to get a very good view of what the sentiment is in terms of actual actions that manufacturers are taking in the economy.
What are manufacturers saying about the state of the economy and the conditions with which they do their work?
I think one of the major challenges that manufacturers generally face, and I suspect that also goes across the broader economy, is that demand in South Africa is still quite weak. The reason for that is obviously that with the increase in the price of fuel, the higher VAT rate, the consumer has less money in his or her pocket, so less disposable income, and that means that there is less money available to buy goods that are manufactured. And as a consequence, demand is slowing down.
Let's talk about the tracker itself. What have been the findings of this particular, or the second quarter of 2018?
I think, contrary to what one would expect in a very negative environment, we saw an increase, a positive trend in 7 of the 8 categories that we measure, and that certainly has been a pleasant surprise. It shows that manufacturing is resilient, that our members are still prepared to back the country. So there's this narrative around that businesses on an investment strike. I think our data clearly demonstrate that that is not the case.
In an economy that is very, very weak on job creation, this sector has also been one that has not been able to recover from the job losses seen during the 2008-2009 economic crisis. How are manufacturing dealing with this? Are they still shedding jobs? Are they employing more? What is the prognosis?
We have, in the last quarterly bulletin released by Stats SA, manufacturing jobs did increase. So there has been an increase in employment, which again is positive, and it shows how manufacturing as a sector has the ability to rapidly absorb unemployed people into the economy. However, if you look at a longer term perspective and you look back to the late 1980s, when manufacturing comprised about 26% of gross domestic product, we are today completely underperforming to the tune of less than 13%.
Just yesterday, we saw the Department of Energy releasing out for comment the new integrated resource plan, which is the energy plan for the country. What does the manufacturing circle make of the developments that have come out of the energy sector?
We welcome the IRP. We think that it's a positive plan for South Africa, first of all, because the unaffordable nuclear program appears to have been put on a back burner. That certainly will help to keep a cap on electricity prices, so we think that that's a very positive development. We also think that the emphasis on renewables creates significant positive opportunities for South African manufacturers, and one would hope that as we grow the sector, that there is significant emphasis placed on local procurement and local supply of the renewable energy sources, because many of our members are well positioned to supply goods into the sector at both costs and quality that are comparable with the best in the world. So one would really hope that there's a strong emphasis on buying local as much as possible.
How have your members been impacted by particularly your tariff imports that we've seen that the US has imposed on countries such as ourselves and China and others? I know that the steel industry is suffering quite a lot, or is going to suffer a lot if those in fact go ahead and take place. How are your members coping with that?
You know, talking to our members, the products that we export in steel and aluminium to the US are really very small items in the bigger scheme of things. So, for example, we make the stainless steel nuts that go on American 4x4s. We make, Hulamin, one of our members, makes aluminium components that go into Tesla motor vehicles. So the argument that the US government has been proposing that the importation of these items from South Africa creates some sort of national security risk, we are really struggling to understand. We think that high unemployment and possibly as a consequence of that, increasing populist policies creates a far bigger risk ultimately to the US than enabling South African manufacturing to export to the US. And we have made that point clear in engagements with the US government.